Hi, Magic Makers. I'm Mombirella.
I'm Yukita Cosplay.
And I'm CJ Peterson. Welcome to Magic Making Mischief. Today we have a special guest, Bill Blair. Before we get to him, though, get your wands to the ready because we solemnly swear we're up to no good. Yay! And today, like I said, we have special guest, Bill Blair. We've already got some comments going. One of them, before we even started, was Caroline Drake said, hello, so looking forward to this podcast. She said she's lit her candle, so this will be a wonderful evening. Jeremy says, hello, everyone. Hello, Jeremy. So we've got lots of people watching already, and we're excited because we have a lot to go over today. You probably know a lot of Mr. Blair's characters, but may not know the actor himself. So, Bill, can you explain some of the characters that you've done over time?
Well, first of all, I want to say hello to everybody that's joining in on us, and that you will be able to watch this later on. She'll explain all this to you later on. My website is, of course, crawling across the bottom of this, and hopefully you'll be able to see. But character-wise, first of all, I hold the Guinness World Record for the most special effect makeup characters portrayed in a career. And that was presented to me back on October 11th of 2011.
Oh, wow.
That was for the most special effect makeup characters portrayed in a career, which then stood at 202. And they varied everything from Frankenstein's monster and 3 of the major monsters from Universal to characters and creatures on Babylon 5, Alien Nation, 3 franchises of Star Trek, a lot of different sitcoms. A lot of people just knew me that, hey, if we need an alien, let's go to him. There is, of course, Doug Jones, but he's done a lot in the past, but he even himself says, I can't even touch Bill. Bill at 202 is, that's his. I've got a good following on Facebook where you can find me, that people from Babylon 5 that still remember some of the things that I used to do, or I'm actually able to answer some of their questions when they have them, because I was fortunate on Alien Nation that I got to learn the whole process of how this stuff would go on me, the prosthetics, the glues, the removers, the paints, the air guns, exactly how this stuff would be done. As a matter of fact, even for the Guinness World Record, I showed up in a stretch limo that had the gull wing door at the back that opened up from the bottom to the top, and I came out actually in a character that makeup artists I worked with at Deep Space Nine put together specifically for this presentation. And I got to remove this, kind of like Mission Impossible, where it more or less came off in one piece, which doesn't normally happen. And I was able to take this off in front of everybody so they could see who the real guy was now underneath all of this makeup and everything. And Caroline, who's joined us, she came all the way from England. I want to say hi, Caroline. Came all the way from England just for my award, for the Fame Award, because I played all these different characters. I was considered a lifetime achievement, of which I said, I really hope it's not a lifetime achievement. I've still got a few years ahead of me. But it was actually a wonderful presentation that we had. And I'm glad Caroline was there and came all that way to see it.
Very cool. Geek Creds, hey y'all, hey Geek, and Caroline says such a wonderful achievement. It is, it's huge. You've done a lot of characters. I told people I wore my Starfleet Academy because a lot of them were Star Trek. And
there's my mom and the alien actor that I am.
There's a lot of them. Cardassians, there's Klingons, there's everything. So you've done so many. Do you have one that maybe is your favorite, one that's your least favorite?
I actually do have a favorite, but it's not actually related to Star Trek, Babylon 5, or any of these.
Oh, really?
My favorite makeup character took 12 pieces, and it took 5.5 hours the very first day of 3 days that we shot. I worked with Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, you might remember. Another friend of mine.
She and I share something. My name is Cassandra Peterson, and her name is Cassandra Peterson.
Oh, okay. She's a very, very nice lady, very family oriented. She still does personal appearances and stuff. How much she does Elvira anymore, I don't know. But it's absolutely wonderful. We knew at 8 o'clock or therefore approximately 8 o'clock at night, we'd always have something else planned, ready to go because she would go to the phone and call her kids. But
Aw.
Oh,
we had another friend of mine from Star Trek Deep Space Nine who played Dracula, which I had played before. And then a friend of mine from Babylon 5 played Wolfman, which I'm too tall for. So which one did I get to play? Of the three big universal monsters, which one's really left?
Frankenstein.
Very good. Frankenstein's monster is the one I got to play. And it's actually my favorite alien I've ever played, even though it's a monster, not an alien. One of the reasons for that very few people know, our stylist who handled all the wardrobe and everything came from Universal Studios.
Mhm.
And guess what she was able to bring for me to wear that 3 days that we were on set as Frankenstein's monster?
Huh.
You have to think back to the old black and white TV days.
Like the actual, are you talking like the actual shoes from the costume and stuff? Oh my gosh. Really?
Talking about Fred Gwynn when he played Fred Munster.
Oh, wow. That's
And I got
awesome.
to wear the actual screen-worn costume that Fred Gwynn wore on the Munsters for all those years. One of those, I think he had 5 total.
Mhm.
It was very hot. It was all worsted wool. It was heavy. I had the big pads underneath because I'm just as skinny as Fred is. I had the boots on. They didn't quite make me 6'4". I think they made me about 6'3". But I had the bolts. I had all this. But Universal requires us, or anybody really, to make one of their monsters at least 10% different from the originals. And
Huh.
therefore, you can avoid any licensing fees and stuff. So we made the bolts just a little bit lower, and I had rings on my forehead.
Huh.
If you go onto my webpage on Facebook, you'll actually see a picture in my gallery and also on my website, which is alienactor.com. You'll actually see pictures of that Frankenstein's monster. And that is really why it makes it absolutely one of my favorites, because how many people can say they wore a screen-worn costume from such a classic show from Universal Studios?
That is
That's
very cool.
awesome. I'm a
We
huge Universal Monsters fan too, so I love that.
Before we move on, we got to catch up on some comments. Carolyn says, hello, Bill, sending lots of love. Sam Pocket says, hi. Geek Cred says, it was for the Elvira motion ride, right?
It was the project we did called Superstition was shown at all of Elvira's special Halloween presentations and it was the House of Superstition where everybody would go inside. We were the pre-show for that.
Okay. Queen Marissa says hi and works hard, says like no to. So haven't heard from her for a few weeks. Of course, I've been gone, so I think we're caught up now on comments. So which one did you like the least favorite? And just probably for application purposes, I would imagine.
No, actually, the applications weren't that bad overall. Applications were pretty much the same. But I caution you, anybody that thinks coffee wakes them up in the morning when they get up, they should try to go sit in a chair at 4 o'clock in the morning and have ice cold glue put on their face.
Oh no.
Oh
It
gosh.
really wakes you up. I'm one of those people, I don't drink coffee, so it was really good for me. But actually, the application is pretty basic. It's glue, the prosthetic pieces, sometimes more glue. If we have to go to hair first, we get our hair slicked down for the Kardashians before we have a hairnet put on. On Babylon 5, we had to have what's called the helmet put on for the Narn. And that was pulled over our heads and that was glued around the face. And then the face itself for the Narn was glued to that helmet. So it became one piece all in itself.
Oh my
So
goodness.
as we moved, our face moved, it moved as well. The Pakmara, the Lort, which were all the ones that I got to wear were animatronic. And yes, I did run into a wall on one scene because I missed one of my steps. Because all I have to see through that Lort is a couple of pinholes. They're literally that big. They're pinholes so I could tell where the light is. And so I knew that I had the battery for the animatronics hanging out the backside. So I had to do a do-si-do with, oddly enough, the same guy who played Wolfman on Superstition. I do-si-doed with him, who was playing a big character at the time, so that he came around me the same time I came around. Nobody got to see the back of my head.
Oh my
But I
God.
did none of my steps, and I ran into the wall at the back of the set. They cut. They said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yes, that one was on me. Let's do it again." We did it again. It was perfect in the way. But to answer your question, believe it or not, the one I hate the worst was actually on Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Uh-huh.
It was the application. Those are always very comfortable, no matter what they are. It was a pullover that we had on Deep Space Nine. We nicknamed it the Greenhorn because it had no race name. It was just known as one of those Westmore aliens I played dozens of. Races that Deep Space Nine had to look like an airport, had to look like a way station where
Right.
just bunches of people always came through at the same time. So we never knew who was going to show up next. So there are a lot of different characters that I played that we have no names. Of course, I never got credit because I never spoke any words unless they were added later on in post-production. But on camera, I never said anything, even on Babylon 5. When I played the Precary Priest, I had absolutely no lines. All the lines that were supposed to go to the priest, they fired the guy, they hired me. No lines, they gave the lines to the ambassador. Okay,
Yeah.
but they still paid me more. But the Greenhorn on Deep Space Nine was actually meant for a girl. So when they stretched it onto me, guess who looked like W.C. Fields with the red nose at the end of the day?
No.
Oh
Because
no.
this thing was so short from front to back. If I talked, I would have sounded like this all day long. I would have sounded worse than I did as a robot in the movie Argo, where I had to scream inside the helmet just to get my voice to come out.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
The worst one is the Greenhorn on Deep Space Nine because it was actually too small for me, but I was the only other guy that could really fit it.
Shame. Geek Cred has a question for you. He says, what do you think was the better show, Babylon 5 or DS9, since they were so similar?
Well, believe it or not, Babylon 5 was pitched to Paramount by J. Michael Straczynski before Deep Space Nine was ever developed and put into play.
Really?
But Paramount turned down Babylon 5 because you're right, it did look a lot like Star Trek, but it was not Star Trek. So we found a place in North Hollywood off Lancashire that was an old spa warehouse that our people turned into sound stages. And we had 3 stages inside there. Meanwhile, Star Trek decided, well, we better have something to compete with Babylon 5. So they created their own station space called Deep Space Nine. That's
Really?
why, in some ways, they look similar. We had a lot of people that thought Babylon 5 was part of the Star Trek world when we first went on the air.
Huh.
But I guarantee you that no, Babylon 5 and Star Trek are completely different. And therefore, since I've worked on both of them, I actually don't have a favorite because I saw the differences in each one of them. I will tell you this. If I had to pick one, I would say Babylon 5 is my favorite because we worked with almost half, a little bit more than half of the budget of Deep Space Nine. I think Deep Space Nine had 1.2 million per episode, and I think we had between $700,000 and $800,000 per episode.
Interesting.
So what they did with that money on Babylon 5 to me was absolutely amazing. Deep Space Nine would go on location every once in a while. Our location was our back parking lot or our front driveway.
Oh
We
wow.
never actually went on location.
Interesting.
It looked like it. It looked like we did. Yes.
John Bordeaux says, hey, and Works Hard says, interesting. That's what I've been.
Quite actually. I was a Deep Space Nine fan personally back in the, whenever it was on air, and I have to admit, whenever I was going through some of the characters you've done on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know these characters from this stuff. But to think like how many you've probably done on top of what I didn't know, knowing like the background, the extra characters, because there were so many in it, is really interesting. I never thought about that. I didn't realize that there were people who were in it that weren't credited for it because they didn't have any lines too.
The contract with the Screen Actors Guild, the contracts basically say that if there's no lines, you don't have to give them credit. Now, you will notice in some movies where the stand-ins and some people do get credit. But generally speaking, I'm one of those actors, unless I had a principal role in something where I spoke a line or something, I did not get credit. But I am proud in my own right to say that I probably made more money than a lot of actors who spoke lines, because I worked almost every day, because you could change me up any way you wanted to. I found this nice little niche in behind all this makeup where you didn't know, you've watched, you've never seen, you never knew who was behind all of those.
True.
Now, people like Jeffrey Combs, who played Andorians, and he played Wayu and the Vorlon, and all these other characters on Deep Space Nine. People know him because they saw his name from time to time. But even he'll admit, he said, I don't even come close to Bill. I worked with Jeffrey on a couple of movies where both of us were out of makeup. Oh, I was in makeup because I was playing a zombie, and one of them, he was playing a regular human. But, and all the wardrobe was mine. By the way, if anybody wants, I've got all this wardrobe I got to get rid of. Because
wow.
as an extra,
Great at Halloween.
I've got all these costumes, things from zombies. I even played my own mother one time in a commercial.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
That did not count towards my Guinness World Record. Yes, I played my own mother in a commercial many, many years ago.
That's funny. Click us up on comments real quick. Caroline says, check out Bill's photos. They're amazing. Works hard says, oops, hold on. She says, I like Deep Space Nine also. John says he's the other half of Blind SOB, and he says he loves your work.
Thank you.
Works hard, just laughing, probably the mother thing. My question is, have you ever thought of flipping over and being an actual actor without?
I have. There's been plenty of times. A couple of times you only saw the back of my head. There was a TV movie, I believe it was Bobby Riggs versus Billie Jean King. And the lady that played Billie Jean King was Emma Stone. And they just picked me right out of the crowd and said, come down here, you're our reporter. But all you saw was the back of my head. All they wanted was somebody my height with my color and tones that held a microphone solid and looked like a reporter in front of her. She asked me to actually say a line to her so it gave her something to respond to. But when I gave her the line I wanted to, she said, no, never mind, I'll just do it myself. So I said, you're fine, go ahead. But we had a good time. A lot of times I played audience members. I got to work with people like Robin Williams and Bette Midler. Some of the last, oddly enough, two of the very last people that Johnny Carson ever had on his show in '92, I got to work with at one time and had conversations with them. Absolutely wonderful. I was on Curb Your Enthusiasm as a regular guy. I was a regular guy as part of a juried situation with Dan Aykroyd and some other people. And Dan Aykroyd, I got a chance to work with him on Sneakers when I was standing in for River Phoenix, God rest his soul. Sorry we lost him. But Dan Aykroyd, who is a big fan of space travel and creatures and stuff, actually, I met him in the parking lot, showed him my card. He took my card and cards and introduced me to everybody that was there that day as the Guinness World Record holder and people, somebody he'd worked with in the past. And that was absolutely wonderful of him to do that. So yes, answer your question, I have played the other side of the tracks as well.
Okay. John says probably a better journalist than half the media these days.
Thank you.
Probably true.
I can hold it steady anytime.
I've been watching a lot of different things for Halloween, and I thought I saw your name in the credits of a vampire movie I watched recently. Was there one that you did? I cannot remember the name of it right this second. I'm so sorry. Was there a monster movie or vampire movie that you've done more recent years? I can't remember what year it was even released. I'm so sorry.
The only thing I can tell you is this: I do not recall any monsters or any aliens that I have played or zombies in this matter, where I had a screen credit.
Oh, okay.
However, if you've seen any of my work, there's an outside chance you might have recognized me. There was actually two people, both are passed away now, but there were two people in my lifetime that no matter what I wore, they could always pick me out of a crowd because they knew exactly what my eyes looked like and my body language. That's the one thing you cannot fool somebody is your body language. I learned you create almost from the time you're an infant. And only if you become a true model where you learn how to walk the runway, you might walk the runway a certain pattern. But as soon as you leave that runway, you're back to yourself again, because when you're on the runway, you are actually acting. People don't realize this. I got to be in one of the first, there was a character I played in Star Trek Voyager. Again, no credit, but I sat right behind the principals. And I was privileged to see Dwayne Johnson's very first role on television when he was in one of our episodes. And he got that job because Rick Berman, the producer, went to his son and said, "Who's the most famous wrestler, greatest wrestler you know right now?" And he said, Dwayne, he said, "Okay, we're going to get him." That's how Dwayne got the job.
Oh my
Sometimes you don't
gosh.
have to go through an audition process or casting to get a job. Like when I got the robot in Argo, is because I had known somebody that worked with me on Deep Space Nine who was the assistant to the wardrobe designer in Argo. And she just said, "I know somebody that can do this for 15 hours and not complain." Well, she was right.
Um,
Wow.
Cred says there was a short-lived Saturday morning show called The Hypernauts that a lot of
Yes,
the
it was a
five
long time
were
ago.
part of. Were you on that show as well?
No, I was just a child then. But yes, he is right. There was Hypernauts. There was a lot of cartoon, mixed animation, live action, uh, cartoon people type shows on Saturday mornings a long time ago. But no, I never even got to Hollywood until 1990.
Do you
And
know
I did
how
all
what
these characters in about 15 years.
Wow.
so do you still do are you still doing parts in movies and shows
At the
now or
moment, for the most part, I'm retired right now. Um, Without going into a lot of it, there's some health reasons why I really no production company. If I had a production company, which I do actually have, Novastar Pictures, and I've been asked to play some roles of which I've turned down because, first of all, I don't think they're going to do me any good. And number two, they demand a little bit sometimes more than I can. But I have had offers, and I still continue to get offers. And if I get something that I think is really worthwhile, there's a good chance I might take it. But for the most part, I'm enjoying my retirement, not doing too much at the moment.
Very cool. Well, kick
Let's
back
go
and
with
relax.
it.
There you
Because
go.
everybody will know me as the alien actor. I don't know that anybody will ever beat me because so many things are done in the computer now. We have a lot less practical makeups, as I call it, practical makeups than we used to. But you'll have people that do things in the computer and they don't separate them.
If you had any advice for somebody who might want to get into acting, either character acting or real act, or not say real acting because it is real acting, but character on, you know what I mean, costume acting or other acting, what advice would you give them?
How to get into this business is a story all in itself, but very much in a nutshell, there are no rules. People want to do what I do or what I used to do. I tell them they need to come and follow me around for 30 minutes or 30 days or so and see exactly what I do. I have my down days, but like when I was working full time on Deep Space Nine, I was going between Babylon 5 and Deep Space Nine. There was a time I got to play a Borg. It was one of my dreams come true. And the hours that we put in are absolutely unbelievable. But this is not a 12-step like Alcoholics Anonymous. If it was 12 steps, anybody and everybody could do it.
Mhm.
But I will tell you this, it can be easy. I was one of the lucky ones. I was in the right place at the right time. There's no question about that. And that's where a lot of it comes down to. People who were discovered when they were young in restaurants are doing what they were doing. David Schwimmer was waiting tables in New York when he was finally seen and made an audition for Friends. Lauren Toys was down to literally less than her last penny. She was driving a Volkswagen that I think got a flat tire or something to make her audition. And she finally ended up with a role on The Love Boat. So you just never know how this is going to happen. But as far as wearing makeup go, be as easy as you possibly can. Let these people know that, you know, you're there for them. You're not there for yourself. That is really the biggest opinion I can say. You're there for them because they're going to take care of you.
Got it. Is there anything you would like to add?
Well, as I mentioned before, you know, people are welcome to see the Alien Actor website. It has a lot of information about me, some of my back history, a lot of pictures. You can also find me on Facebook. Unlike a lot of people, I do not have assistants. If you talk to somebody on Facebook or one of these social media things, you're talking to me, because I believe in staying in touch with my fans, the people that want to know me, and I answer their questions. Or, as a good person, if I don't know the answer, I'll suggest where they can find the answer, or I'll get the answer for them. I do have Nova Star Pictures. It's kind of defunct at the moment. I've got 3 projects that are ready to go. If anybody wants to donate a couple of $1 million, I'm ready to go with it.
Definitely donate a couple $1 million to any of us at this point. We'll all take it. Okay, well, thank you so much for donating a little bit of your time to talk to us tonight. You are a true treat. We appreciate it. Man of 1,000 faces right there. You definitely are. Thank you so much.
And 1,000 words.
Thank you guys for joining us today. We have a special on Thursday. The NerdCon crew is going to be joining us, talking about NerdCon. It's going to be coming up in November. Also, next Tuesday, we have voice actor Peter Kalamis coming to join us. So don't forget to pop in next Tuesday, same time, same sandbox. Mombi, why don't you go ahead and write this out?
Also, right now they're going through the round 3 of the cosplay contest on Legendary Supplements Instagram and their stories. So please vote for me and Yukita because we're in there. You might see a few other cosplay friends we have in there as well. So check that out. And thanks for joining us today, guys. Till next time, mischief managed. Bye.